right. So now we're talking about outrage, enrage, and unrage, right?
Yes.
And we're going to talk about Joe Biden and his candidacy for president, right? So I want to give a framework for what this is about, right?
Okay.
So there has been a lot of rhetoric on the timeline,
the news feed, the email, YouTube,
in my interactions with Black people independently, right?
Yes.
Where there's a sourness to Joe Biden,
absolutely,
as the candidate,
and outrage,
and
people are enraged,
by some of his comments, some of his gaffes,
Listen, you got to come see us when you come to New York, VP Biden.
I will.
It's a long way until November. We got more questions.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't Black.
It don't have nothing to do with Trump. It has to do with the fact I want something for my community.
I think we want to understand where the commentary, the complaints are, explain, and then figure out where we should go next, right? So, off top, let's talk about Congress, right? So, anyone who became president, they would have to deal with a Congress that had the House is controlled by Democrats, the Senate is controlled by Republicans. Maybe the Democrats have a long shot at taking over it. More than likely, they're going to have a contested government when they get into office, right? So how does that impact the effectiveness of a president?
I mean, we saw it with Barack Obama,
right?
And that's a whole different installment to the podcast. That's a whole different video, audio, PowerPoint, infographic. But we were there when my man wanted to close Guantanamo.
Yes.
He wanted to roll out universal health care in a timely manner, and it did not occur that way. Wanted to bring home the troops. I mean, there's a bunch of things that a bunch of presidents, honestly, Obama's not the only one, wanted to make happen on the campaign. It was day one. Let's get to work. And one experiences gridlock, wherein Cocaine Mitch, Moscow Mitch, aka Darth Vader, the Grim Reaper. These are names. 50% of those he came up with himself. He'll kill a bill, and so and they have cronies to follow behind them on either side to stand in total opposition, more on one than the other, total opposition to any particular bill. And so, some things, the outlandish things, the bolder things like closing Guantanamo Bay, are simply impossible. They won't happen.
Yeah. When I worked in D.C., Paul Ryan was still the Speaker of the House.
Yes.
And when I say that man had wrinkles from dealing with the Tea Party.
A Tea Party that he once attended.
Yes.
He was doing keg stands at the Tea Party.
Yeah. But now everything he tried to do was opposition to it, His own economic plans and tax plans, they weren't trying to play with, right? So I think it's important because, if you're a Elizabeth Warren fan or a Bernie Sanders fan or a Pete Buttigieg fan, I think you still have the same problem of whoever you thought could win and get into the presidency, they were going to run to the same issues of gridlock and Congress stopping a lot of progress. And
that's one of the many factors to a candidate either beginning trying to be a moderate, middle ground, watered down, progressive, liberal, whatever, or of them tapering down their or dulling the blade of their political philosophy, ideology. So by the time they're either trying to be the candidate and they are the candidate, it doesn't hit the way it used to.
Yeah.
Because the message has to change by the time they're in that seat in the Oval Office, or they will get nothing done.
Yeah. So let's talk about the complaints on Joe Biden's record, right? Off top evidence, right? So he's always been a centrist, right? So whatever issue we're talking about in any time from the 70s to the 80s to the 90s, he was in the middle of the issue, right? So the issues he's been most progressive on is voting rights for Black people, right? So the NAACP has always given him glowing remarks on his record on voting rights, right? And it's something he brought up in his infamous interview with Charlemagne, and he wasn't lying. That was true. Yeah, he's always been on those issues. But like the issue of busing, right? So let's frame what the complaint is on this issue with busing.
The Twitter take,
right?
The tweet is Joe Biden opposed busing. He didn't want Negroes going to white people's schools. He likes separate but equal.
Right.
He's not the one.
Yeah.
That's the take.
Yeah, that's the Twitter take. the actual truth, though, so let's get into the meat of the matter, was that busing was controversial even in the black community, right? So there was those who believed that there needs to be a forced integration of schools, right? And there was those who believed that why should I send my child to a school where the teachers hate them, you know?
To quote King, do I want to integrate them into a burning house?
Yes.
Not what King was talking about, but it fits the situation.
Yeah. And so the question becomes, like in Boston, setting 4, setting 5, they're throwing rocks at the school buses as they leave the school, or parents take their kids out of school altogether.
On the evening news, Bostonians saw school buses being attacked as they left South Boston.
Throwing eggs at the window and try to hit people with them, and they was calling us black niggas.
I want to say that my little boy got back safe, but the only reason I don't think why they should bust these smaller kids across there and get all hurt up when they can't defend themselves. I feel like they should go over here to this school over here in Denver. Instead of busting them way across there, they can't defend themselves, they can't fight, they can't do nothing.
So his centrist argument was that schools should do busing if the school district themselves agree to it, not if the federal government forces them, right? Now, we have the beauty of hindsight, which is 2020, and we can look back and be like, well, forced integration should have happened because now we're in 2020 and schools are still as segregated as it was then, right?
Or more.
Or more, yeah. So, but that's not 1970. That's not the
yeah, you don't have that perspective. Yeah, it's like
1975.
And the true fact is that the educational resources, and we know this, like I don't know, and sometimes we forget the resources available through public funding for black students through a number of different factors that contribute to that funding were a fraction of what the white students had.
Yeah.
And so that's where the impetus for integration comes, is that if my white children are going to a black school and my black children are going to a white school, I have incentive, one would think, to make sure everybody gets the money they need.
The problem became that it often led to violence against small children, you know. And so the centrist argument was that maybe we should, if there's opposition like that, then maybe forcing is not the way to go.
Joe Biden didn't want to force it and hurt black children.
Yeah. And there was also support for that in the black community.
Right. We're not stupid.
Yeah. The next argument is the 1994 crime bill, right? Let's give me the Twitter take for the 1994 crime bill.
Crime Bill Clinton, okay, known philanderer, sexual assaulter, etc., saxophone player.
Yes.
Panderer, anyway, was in cahoots with Joseph Biden when they passed the Crime Bill in 95, which locked up a lot of people's fathers. I mean, to put it plainly. And if you've seen the 13th documentary, you have a certain level of hatred for 90s law and order legislation, because it basically was trying to defeat Tupac by locking up. And of course, Tupac doesn't need to be defeated.
Yes.
But it was trying to defeat Tupac by, locking up every black man in America.
Yeah, there's a famous line in that Bone Thugs Harmony song that says, we have done wrong rappers, but we do not like those thugs.
We're not against rap. We're not against rappers. But we are against those thugs.
The problem is, let's talk about the political landscape at the time, right?
Yes.
So 1994, the crime rate was high, so...
This is the crest of the crack wave.
Yes.
Right, so the 80s is the time we always reference with crack, but the war on drugs didn't stop it. Yeah. And in fact, only made it worse.
Yes. So there's just a rise in crime. Places like New Orleans, Baltimore, LA, they were dealing with a serious epidemic, serious issue here, right? And black people, black clergy, were asking for something to be done, right? So in 1994, there was a midterm election. The Democrats were going to get slaughtered because they were considered to be soft on crime. Soft on crime. So therefore, a crime bill had to be passed. The Congressional Black Caucus was one of the main ones the people supported the crime bill, right? The Association of Black Mayors, so the black mayors of New Orleans, Baltimore, Atlanta, supported the crime bill.
Mark Morial was mayor of New Orleans. Talk about the New Orleans that you inherited as mayor in 1994, crime-wise.
It was a complete mess. It was a shooting gallery. There were 400 plus murders a year. It's hard for people in today's environment to maybe put themselves in 1992, 93, 94 in a place like New Orleans where carjackings were routine, where each and every night there were drive-by shootings. Most of the victims of most of these violent offenses were African American. So the outcry from the African American community to do something, to fix the problem, was really the clarion call that got me elected.
Right. There was support for this bill because if 1995 had come around and the Democrats, the Republicans took over,
yes,
Newt Gingrich would have wrote the 1995 crime bill. You think the 1994 crime bill is bad. You have no idea of the horrors that Newt Gingrich would have came up with if he was allowed to write that bill.
And if you don't remember Newt Gingrich,
yeah,
let's take a little bit of John McCain's very old man, old school Republican kind of energy, rhetoric. And then we're going to sprinkle in a little bit of Donald Trump, old school ignorance and misogyny.
Yeah.
And then slam all together with that Paul Ryan, I'll never flinch on anything that the president tries to do because he's a liberal. And you've got a white-haired, wrinkly, jolly dude.
Yeah. I mean, he cheated on his wife, but she had cancer. You know. I don't know what else I need to say about Newt Gingrich, right?
Look him up on YouTube. He had a YouTube show, and he admitted that he couldn't work an iPod Nano, which has one button.
Yeah, so if Newt Gingrich had wrote the 1995 crime bill, we were talking about a totally different world, right? So the amount of black people we saw locked up would have been tenfold worse, right? So that's why the bills were in 1994. The political landscape was what it was. There was black support for the bill. And then there was support because many clergy and black lawmakers felt that the bill was necessary. Now, give me a Twitter response to that argumentation.
Stop being a coward and be principled. So who cares about political efficiency if you're going to sell your soul to the white man? All those guys were salads and coons anyway. And so Christian Black Caucus, be damned.
Yeah. I think that argumentation works really well in a tweet.
Hey.
It does not work well when it's time to go and actually craft legislation, right? So it is easy to sit behind a keyboard or computer and then make these principal arguments, you know. But I think it gets hard when you have to go and make legislation and you don't have the votes because your principle is only going to take you so far, you know.
Obama was a real principled man when he said we should stop torturing unconvicted men in Guantanamo Bay. But Guantanamo Bay, after 8 years of Obama being president, is very much still a jail that we hold and torture suspected terrorists in.
Yeah, and so the problem becomes that I think that our opinion of Joe Biden on the crime bill, I think many times is a pot calling the kettle black. Because it was our parents, it was our some of our leaders who are still here today.
Pastors, aunties, principals.
Who were in support of such a bill. You know, was it wrong? Yes. 100%. It was wrong.
And did we not see the total fallout? I mean, one, you're trying to dodge a worse fallout, but I mean, mass incarceration to the degree that we've seen, and the privatized prison, the prison industrial complex altogether. I mean, you know, a lot of legislation is supported by black folks, and without knowing the full insidious capitalistic machinations, the way people intend on profiting off of pain, one could only, you know, it's like, I just wanted to get the drug dealers off the street. Yeah. And I could never have seen from 1995 the fallout that we have now.
Yeah. So I think what the thing we can ask Joe Biden to do is to amend 50 cents, right? In his platform, he does amend 50 cents, right? So he believes in shutting down private prisons. He believes in expunging all cannabis-related criminal records, right? Now that doesn't mean everyone who has a cannabis-related record or crime would be let out of jail, because many times most court systems, they give you with cannabis with intent to sell plus unlawful possession of a weapon, right?
Right.
So those two things put together most people probably still end up staying in jail because of the unlawful possession of a weapon, unless they also gave you time served for that, right? And then he has some of the most progressive policies that there is out there, you know. So I think we should pretty much talk about, you know, how is it that such a progressive candidate is so looked down upon.
Right. So his criminal justice policies are, besides the abolition of prison, which is genuinely progressive and borderline radical to most, or bona fide radical to most, even though it may not be bona fide radical to most, that is absurd and mind-blowing. And so Joe Biden really just does as much as possible within the realm of what people would consider reasonable within the Overton window of possibility. And so if you're operating within the realm of reason and everything that has been done within the realm of reason doesn't produce fruit, then I want to get unreasonable. And that's the whole Democratic Party ethos, and it's popular on social media as well. And so that's why we have the riot moment, right? All these all of our political ideas in moment now is really a result of seeing opposition that is unreasonable. In the Republican Party, Mitch McConnell and his acolytes are genuinely unreasonable, right? When Barack Obama wanted to put up a centrist, moderate judge within his constitutional right, was straight up blocked, and he said Constitution be damned, right? So we have unreasonable elements in the police, in the Republican Party, in a lot of our political systems and education, etc. And so I want to be unreasonable, and we want to fight basically fire with fire.
You know, you fight fire with fire, there's a whole world burn. I would like to go down some of his progressive ideals. You know, so taxes. Joe Biden plans to raise taxes on the rich. That would be an estimated $4 trillion wealth transfer. It would be the most expansive progressive tax bill ever. Public option for healthcare, 50% minimum wage, $1.7 million for climate change, education, $2 trillion investment in education, a $1.3 trillion infrastructure bill, which would be the most we ever spent on infrastructure since the New Deal. And then yes, we talk about criminal justice, right? So if we go down these, we see where he's really progressive, more progressive than any person we've ever seen in this role. Where does the real problem lie with Joe Biden? Is the problem with Joe Biden that people don't longer believe in the system, and therefore they just are going to be obtuse to anyone who isn't principled, and they more so believe that principle matters more than politics.
Right, and it's really, when you're living in the country that we live in the stage of its development that we are in, and conservatism has positioned itself on the side of what is powerful necessarily. So if conservatives conserve wealth, conserve capital, conserve status for the, you know, dare I say, billionaire elite, right? Conservative senators got their hands on our COVID relief plans. Many tax breaks were added, and many reservations were added for those who are rich, right? It's simply the status quo. And so when you have power set up, those who are set up on the side of power, and those, not to say that the Democrats are squeaky clean, because they're not, but when you have progressive policies that are set up for the everyman, one cannot go and be unreasonable because I am operating from the side of those without power. Martin Luther King could not speak like Malcolm X, even though Malcolm X is a beautiful orator with very true words. Malcolm X was not in the Oval Office with LBJ. And Martin Luther King was, and he often bit his tongue. You can see it in his speaking. I can, and you can read it in his writing, and how he has to protract his growth and let it, instead of being a peak and valley, let it be a curving arch. And slowly but surely, maybe you may not remember his name, you may besmirch his name, as many do, but the end result is that we get far further with the curving arch as we do spiking up and down. And I feel like with that spike, we may lose a lot of the things that we do progressively. And Obama was not radically progressive, but a lot of his progress was lost because he did what he could in shoehorning in progress, and it was shoehorned right out in the next administration.
Yeah, with the executive orders. Yeah,
exactly.
And so I think to come to a close, right? I think, you know, to be honest, I understand people's disillusionment with the political process, right? Politics is dirty, right? It's
filthy.
It's not you know, something that you leave clean, right? Being in the political world as long as Joe Biden was, it would have been impossible for him to be clean fully, right? And I think that it's very easy for us to many times to want to not think about the hard decisions that must be made, you know, because hard decisions aren't easy, you know.
And it's also, I mean, it takes a level of education, right?
Yeah.
You gotta really get into it, in which most people, I mean, it's just a matter of fact. A lot of people, you know, I'm just gonna watch the 10 o'clock to 6 o'clock news and keep it pushing. I'm gonna maybe grab the paper, but that requires a level of research.
Yeah, and you know, every man doesn't have the time for that, you know. And just to ask them to do that sometimes I think would be unreasonable, you know. So I think at the end of the day, I think we, as black people, to support Joe Biden, I think is important, you know. And I don't think it's important because of who Joe Biden is, you know. I think it's important. I'm not a homer for him and his team. You know, I don't work for him. But I think
Joe Biden does not pay my bills.
But I think the opposite is a horrendous option.
Are you aware that children are still in cages like right now?
Yeah.
Like, and a lot of, you know, if you are unemployed, which is more likely than it's ever been, that you're unemployed right now, there's a single individual responsible for that.
Yeah. Donald J. Trump, you know. And I think that it's not a lesser two evils.
It's not.
There is one evil, and it must be stopped.
And there is one normal, and not even normal. There's one left of normal, more progressive than normal option. So you have one that's pretty good, and one that is abysmal.
Yeah, I think the argumentation maybe just to fill time, because I don't think his argument really get down into the meat of it. Yeah.
So when you're outraged by the way he speaks, because he's a very old man, he has a stuttering problem. He has problems with just being old and seeing the way he does, and black consciousness changing so drastically. Which, when your race is invisible, as whiteness is, and you see black people just, I mean, he saw the 70s and he saw all the way up through the 90s, and then now, I mean. He's like, what's wrong with you guys? You guys are really like all the time angry. And so when you see all that change and you try to address it, he fails. He really does. But when you see all that, we have to look past it, have the discipline and the care for ourselves to look past that and make a decision that's best for us and ours.
Yeah, so that's this segment. Outrage, enrage, and hopefully we're unraged. Hopefully.
Yeah.